Okay, it looks like I'm going live. So, hey everybody, I don't know if anybody's watching this or not, but what I wanted to do was the first time I ever did Facebook Live, it wasn't necessarily the most graceful thing in the world, so I want to give this a try again. Um, so, my little thought is kind of go through something that, at the beginning of something I want to do, is I want to eventually build a brown bess from scratch. Granted, that's a long ways to go, and I have a lot to learn and do. However, that is an ultimate goal. I really enjoy the gunsmithing of the 18th century, and I really enjoy just the intricacies because it's a art, but it's also a trade. And a place to go, good place to start, I figure, is with a brown bess I currently have for reenacting. I was going through and doing some cleaning, but also disassembling my lock because I wanted to try this guy right here, which I got from Track of the Wolf. Let me see if I can hold that a little better. This is a mainspring vise. Um, Hopefully, I am doing this correctly. It served its purpose. I was able to remove this off my lock without it exploding on me, and it looks like it's staying compressed so that I can get it back together. But this right here, this portion is the main spring. So I'm working a little backwards, but this here, this is the main spring on a musket. And this is a flintlock musket. And what makes it a flintlock musket is that there is a piece of flint. So if you can see right here, piece of flint that is being held in a jaw, and I have these apart a little bit. That flint, let me turn this around. The flint gets held in this hammer, and the and it's actually actuated by the main spring. That's where it gets its action once the trigger is pulled. And that piece of flint will strike up against the frizzen. So the frizzen is actually this flat part here. Now, granted, that gets scarred up enough and softened, it won't actually spark, but I can do a little cleaning and this should spark good. It was sparking good at the end of the season last year. So what would happen is this piece right here would come down and strike and create sparks, and that would then throw it into a pan here, which we fill with gunpowder, and that will go into a touch hole. So just to kind of go over some of this, this is the lock. This is basically the lock body. So the lock body holds everything together, and it gets inletted into the side of the stock. And the stock holds this, and it's held in with a bunch of screws. So like this. So you can see right here. Here's a square lug here that the hammer actually engages in. Then a screw goes in here, and that tightens it up. Now, so I'm gonna kind of walk through. And this, I will give you this. Say this much: this thing needs to be cleaned up. I have not done my service by letting it get this corroded, and yeah, I need to get that cleaned up. So, but in the meantime, here I have this. I'm gonna go and do a little cleaning, and I'll get this back together. So I guess for starters, what I'll do is I'll get this hammer back installed. Again, I always hear people comment how difficult this is to do on video, and I can see why. Pardon the camera. The camera is just my camera on my laptop, so it's not the best in the world, and I'm probably not going to win any videography awards. So I'm going to get that all tightened. Get that down. So I get it snug. Now, one thing I did not do is I did not show you the back side of this. So I am completely messing up on my terminology. I believe this part here is called, this is the sear, and I'm sure I'll probably be correct if anyone watches this video, and it's going to correct me a whole bunch, but awesome if you do, then that allows me to make corrections. So as you can see in the sear here, there's a couple notches down here, and then this little guy right here is actually engages with the trigger, and this is the trigger spring. So the trigger will come up and it'll hit this, but I don't know if I can see it, but there's a notch like right in here that is back cut. So if you ever heard the expression going off half cocked, then that's what this is. With this being straight up and down, the hammer being straight up and down, that's called half cock. So release is when this is forward in the fired position. Then when it's back up here, that means that it's in full cock, and that will allow it to fire. That half cock is kind of a safety position in the 18th century. So there are times when in our reenactment that we will present our flintlocks, and they will go through and actually knowing this unloaded, and we'll have it in half cock, and they will pull on the trigger to see if they can get it go off. If the hammer does fire and goes off half cocked, that means that hey, that musket is not suited for the battlefield. Granted, this is a reenactment. The battlefield is just a stage, but we do practice the tactics and such of the 18th century. That's one of the coolest things I've learned so far about the 18th century military tactics is yes, they did fight in lines. However, there's a lot more strategy than just fighting in lines. There was a lot of maneuvering, and the goal was to get the opponent off the battlefield. So, with that, I'll get back to the lock. Right here, these different holes are tapped holes and locating holes for locating the different parts of the lock on a musket. So, let me see if I can do this backwards. So this main spring right here will go in here, and that will get pressed in. You can see, I don't know, let me see if I can pull that off again. You can see that little tab right here. Oh, it's hard to see. That engages here, and that helps hold it in place. And then this tapped hole right here will take a screw, and that will hold it in place. And then this little part right here, that actually engages in here, and that helps drive the mechanism of the lock. If anyone's out there and happens to, if you can hear my audio, let me know if it's doing well or not. Again, this is kind of one of my first few times in doing Facebook Live, so please go and make a comment on the side so I can see where comments are coming in. Um, with that, I'll give a little shout out to tomorrow is the Willard virtual reenactment, Willard Middle School. Um, Mr. Von Camp or Kyle Von Camp does an awesome job of putting on a reenactment with the eighth grade students. Unfortunately, this year we cannot gather at Willard, so we can't do the reenactment in person. However, there's a bunch of demonstrations going on uh, virtual. So we will be logging on to Facebook Live or have videos all prepped and ready, and we will be talking about different aspects of the 18th century. Myself, I'm going to be talking about the 42nd Highlanders and also talking about Highland British troops and their what they wore and what they portrayed in the 18th century. So hey, if you get a chance to tune in, look for the event World Virtual reenactment, and it's going to be pretty good. So, one thing I thought of too is I'll go through the anatomy of this spring. So you have a couple points right here that support the spring, and what that does is that allows you to compress it so that you can actually you can pop it on and off. I have heard people talk about using vice grips. However, vice grips can does not properly locate or decompress it to pop it off very well, and it can actually damage the spring, cause your main spring to break. With all the different variations of flintlocks out there, finding a replacement mainspring can probably be pretty difficult. This is a Navy Arms. This was Navy Arms just before the Japanese Dixie muskets came out, so this is somewhat common. They do make parts for. However, probably every day it gets a little bit more and more difficult to actually come up with parts. My goal in the future is I want to make these from scratch. I want to be able to forge my own springs. I want to be able to heat treat and temper them. I want to make the lock from scratch. I want to forge weld my barrel if possible. Make my own stock. Do it all. Metal casting is something I went to school for, and there's a lot of metal casting on a flintlock. So from the brass butt plates to the thumb guard to the trigger guard to the thimbles that hold the ramrod, that's all casting, and I absolutely love it. So I'll get this back in here and get this main spring. Uh, Again, as I'm doing this, I'm probably not the most versed person in the world. I have never had any formal training, etc. So you guys may be cringing right now if you know anything about muskets. So there's the screw. Screw goes in. And one really cool videos I watched was the gunsmith of Colonial Williamsburg. That is an awesome video and actually one of my big inspirations that I really enjoy watching. I'll watch that over and over and over. I bought it. I have it. Anyone that knows me will realize that I could go on for hours about that and bore anybody. So, but that's one of the things I want to get into. Um, so, again, once you get that, you can loosen it up, and that relieves tension that pops it off. Again, you can get these a bunch of different places. Um, this vise right here I got from Track of the Wolf. Track of the Wolf is a big flintlock supply house. Um, awesome. So everything I've dealt with so far has been awesome. Um, or I know anyone. if you're in reenacting, you probably know who Roy Najecki is. He offers some vices on his site and etc. So right now, granted, I didn't bother taking this off. Down the road, I will try to attempt to take this stuff off. However, I don't think I'm going to at the moment. It does need to be clean though. So I'm going to flip this back around. So it's right here. This piece holds the flint in place. Then there's a screw that comes in here. Now some flintlocks, and I'm trying to remember if different model brown besses had this option, but some of them have holes that are in this screw. And there are musket tools that they have dug out of the ground that have the ability, you can stick stuff in here, actually leverage it to tighten it, help hold it in place. One thing that I need to do too is I need to get a new piece of leather for my flint. This here's not, it's seen better days. However, they also use sheets of soft lead to hold that in place. So this gets wrapped around here, and that will go in the jaws. But I'm going to do that later. First, what I'm going to do is this is the frizzen. And the frizzen is hardened, so this is, in the 18th century they used a lot of wrought iron. And however, because steel, they hadn't invented the Bessemer, or they hadn't invented the process. I apologize. The Bessemer process was actually, no, that was English. Never mind. I'm sorry. But the Bessemer process in the U.S. was taken by Andrew Carnegie as he came over to England, then came back and built the Bessemer furnaces, and that's how the U.S. steel industry got started. So very interesting. I wish I could do just classes alone on industrial history. So I'm just cleaning this because that's actually what I found one of the biggest causes of something not to spark is having a dirty frizzen. So I'm just getting this cleaned up here real quick. Again, I apologize about the camera. Camera's not the greatest, but it's what I have right now. Again, I doubt I'm going to go professional anytime soon. So before I put that in, I know I'm jumping around. I'm not the most graceful person in the world. I am going to get the frizzen spring so you can open and close it so it comes in and out. You can see again there's a detent. There's a little pin. And actually that pin, I was up in Mackinac and they were talking about that. That pin is actually integral to that spring. So when this spring is actually forged, they may have a little protrusion to where these pins go, but they actually file that down to get that pin. So that's part of it. So when the spring is made, that thing is about that wide, and they file that down. One of the more common misconceptions of a blacksmith shop is that you will always hear pounding. Well, that's not necessarily true. From what I've heard, is a blacksmith shop in the 18th century you will hear filing a whole lot more than you will actually hear pounding and work being done on the forge. That's because they do work on the forge, or they have to finish it. They do the work with a file after the forge. So we see right here is that this lines up in here, and what I have here is I have a flash guard. And yeah, this flash guard is dirty, so let me clean that off. But One thing I'm not 100% sure is if they had flashcards back then. However, I know nowadays that prevents the guy next to you, to your right, from getting a big old fireball in the face. So I know if I don't have that aligned properly, people have gotten after me and have not been happy. So I'm going to see if I can actually use this main spring here to see if I can get that. I don't know if I can. Nope, I think that's only for a main spring. Maybe I can make shift this again, please. If I'm doing something wrong, please make a comment. Doesn't look like it's gonna work. So that fell out on me. Yeah, that'd help if I actually put it in this slot. Okay, I'm gonna try this different. Take the spring off. Put this on first. It actually creates enough of a seal too that will keep your powder dry. Okay. So right now you can kind of see that flop around. It's funny in some of the history films, you will see people that don't know history very well, or the props aren't very well. This thing likes to be flopping around on the guns or flintlocks, and it'll show it firing, but it really does not fire very well if that is not working properly. So I'm going to see if I can get this all squeezed down. Well, I don't know if I can get that. Let me try this one more time. Yeah, no, as I was thinking, I don't think this will work. Okay. Maybe, crossing my fingers. Nope. Oh, this is a little more. Actually. Oh, yes. I think I've got it. Release that. Okay. So now that that's in, you guys can, it's hard to see, but that's actually spring loaded. So now I will put my flint in, open that up, tighten that down if I can. Ow. That you don't want to do. Don't get your thumb between that and the frizzen because it hurts. So, this is what's known as full cock. As you can see there. And I don't know if you can see very well. But right here, this little guy here engages in notches. Right in here. So, is this the trigger pushes up on that? Yeah, I always am find this very difficult because I'm afraid something's going to get pinched. Okay. Something is not working right. There we go. So you can see that went forward. I think I'm a little bit too tight on my hammers. Again, if anyone has any suggestions on that, I'd be glad to take them. Ow. Again, it's not getting enough to get a spark. There we go. I seen sparks there. So you can get an idea of what it's supposed to do. So, cool. Well, see. I think I see one person's on. Who's ever is watching, hey, welcome. Hopefully you can watch this when it's all done, and you can let me know how it's doing. Um, hey, if you just want to type a comment or so I can see. Oh, they just went away. Okay, never mind. So with that, that pretty much wraps up my little spiel on the brown bess lock. Um, again, yeah, if anyone wants to leave comments, leave feedback, that'd be greatly appreciated. But awesome. Well, everyone have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you later.